welcome back to another true crime video. Today I'm going to be talking about the solved murder disappearance of Bonnie Haim. Now this case was so fascinating to research, so interesting. It has so many twists and turns, and it's crazy because it involves a 3-year-old's testimony to his own mother's murder, and it's just kind of insane how this whole case pans out. The trial actually just happened, and the sentencing for the perpetrator of the crime is supposed to happen, I believe, May 7th or May 8th. Without further ado, let's get into the case. Bonnie Haim lived in Jacksonville, Florida at the time of her disappearance with her husband Michael Haim and her son Aaron, who was 3 years old at the time. She was a pretty young mom at the age of 23, and she absolutely adored her son. He was the absolute light of her life, and she would have done anything for him. Friends said she was bubbly and kind and just a really good friend and person to everyone around her. Michael Haim, Bonnie's husband, worked as a manager at a construction supply company, and Bonnie worked in the accounts department. This company was actually owned by Michael's aunt Yvonne, and Yvonne was not only the aunt of Michael, she was actually very good friends and very close to Bonnie. So Yvonne is a name that will pop up a lot in this story, in this case. Even though, like I said, Yvonne was very close to Michael and Bonnie, she did claim that there were multiple occasions where she witnessed Michael being verbally abusive to Bonnie at work. She said there was even one time where it got physical. There was one time where Bonnie came in to the office and she was very upset with broken fingernails because her husband had actually slammed her hand in the car door. Soon after, Michael slammed her hand in the door and she realized that his abuse wasn't just verbal anymore but physical. She decided enough was enough and she was going to leave him. She actually opened a bank account in her own name, and she had the bank send her bank statements and paychecks to her work instead of the home she shared with Michael, just so he wouldn't be aware of her plans to leave him, because she knows that he would be very, very angry at her. Unfortunately, even with her efforts to keep everything secret from Michael, he ended up finding out by finding a bank statement at her work. And when he found out, he was furious. He confronted her and said how they're married and this isn't her money and that, you know, her paycheck should be going into their shared account, and very firmly said that she better get rid of the account that day. So she did. She closed the account, but her friends did say that her plan to divorce Michael was still very much in place. She put down a deposit for a new apartment, gave money to her friends to keep safe at their homes away from Michael, and she even enrolled her little son Aaron at a new preschool. So she was very determined to leave Michael. It was January 6, 1993, the evening that Bonnie disappeared. She had come home that night at around 7:30 p.m. to her husband Michael and son Aaron, and she actually had plans to go over to Yvonne's house just to go over some baby shower plans that they had going on for a friend. However, this would never happen. Bonnie actually called Yvonne at 8:30 to tell her that she wouldn't be coming over because Michael and her had had an argument. Yvonne actually recalls that she was very upset and crying and just seemed very distraught about the whole situation. So when Yvonne actually asked her if she wanted her to call back later, she said no, and that she would just talk to her the next day. The next morning, Michael called into work at the construction supply company and said that neither of them would be coming in. He explained that Bonnie had actually left the night before after an argument at around 11 at night. That same morning that Michael called into work, Bonnie's purse was actually discovered by a maintenance worker in a trash can about 5 miles away from their house. But due to the amount of money and credit cards that were still in her purse, robbery was quickly dismissed as a motive for the disappearance. So of course authorities went to Michael to sort of ask him about all the belongings that she might have had in her purse, if anything was missing that he could tell. So when they were in that room, Yvonne actually walked in and she remembers very clearly that he did not seem as upset as she thought that he would be, especially when his wife is missing. She said that he seemed more upset about the fact that she had money in her purse that he didn't know about than the fact that she was gone, which raised a lot of red flags for her. However, Michael was very insistent of his innocence and stuck to the story that they had gotten an argument. Bonnie was mad at him and took off at 11 that night, leaving him and their son behind. Michael actually said that he called his mother over that night to watch Erin while he went out to search for her, but he only searched for her for 45 minutes and didn't report her missing all throughout the night, which is odd. That story of only searching for her for 45 minutes and then not reporting her missing didn't sit well at all with authorities, so they ended up going to the Jacksonville airport, which was very close to the motel where her purse was found. And sure enough, in the Jacksonville airport parking lot, Bonnie's car was just abandoned there. Upon arrival of the car, authorities noticed a couple things that were suspicious. Number one, the driver's seat was pushed far back to a position that wouldn't be comfortable for Bonnie to drive in, but more so comfortable for someone taller, like the stature and size of someone like, say, Michael Haim. They also noticed a very defined shoe print on the driver's side floor mat. The very distinct shoe tread actually belonged to a rare style of athletic shoes, and funnily enough, Michael Haim actually owned a pair of these rare athletic shoes at the time. Authorities actually believed that the shoe print belonged to the last person to drive Bonnie's car. So Yvonne, Michael's aunt, as well as some other family members, were pretty convinced that Michael was involved in Bonnie's disappearance. However, Bonnie's own parents did not think that Michael was involved at all. Bonnie's father actually said during an interview that there are thousands of women who leave their husbands and families every year, and it's always a complete surprise to their families. Even when Bonnie's parents were told about the shoe print matching the exact rare athletic shoes that Michael owned at the time, Bonnie's father actually said, well, my shoe print's in my wife's car, that doesn't mean I caused any harm to her. So he was just not convinced at all by any of these suspicious things that authorities discovered. It just didn't convince him that Michael would do something like that. He just didn't think the shoe print or anything that they had found was significant to the case. So this is where the case gets crazy to me. Authorities had actually sent child psychologists to meet with Erin, Michael and Bonnie's 3-year-old son, just to ask him some questions. I actually saw a video of the child psychologist asking Erin these questions in a room where he's just coloring in a coloring book, you know, very nonchalant, keeping it casual just so the child isn't scared or intimidated by these strangers asking him questions. And his answers were utterly heartbreaking. She asked Erin if he's ever seen Mummy sad, and Erin said, mm-hmm. And then she began to ask him, when she was sad, was she hurt or was she okay? And he said hurt. When she asked where his mummy got hurt, he pointed to his stomach and said her tummy. And even more alarming, during the questioning, Erin had actually said that Daddy hurt Mummy and Daddy couldn't get Mummy to wake up. So very alarming statements from a 3-year-old. So after this interview between the psychologist and Erin, investigators actually came to the conclusion that there had been a domestic fight between Bonnie and Michael, and it got very heated. He ended up killing her, dragging her body away, and to add to the complete horror, 3-year-old Erin witnessed it. Bonnie's father, Robert, said that he doesn't believe that his grandson's testimony is accurate. He did make a point that during the interview process, Erin said that his mom's car was in a lake. Well, that was proven that it wasn't true. It was at the airport. So basically, he was saying that if he made that up, you know, he's 3 years old. What else could it be making up? So Michael Haim was the prime suspect in the case. However, the families remained very split. One side of the family, like Yvonne, truly believed that Michael was involved in her disappearance and that Erin did witness his mother's own murder. And there were some family members like Bonnie's parents who believed that Michael was not involved and that Erin made up his testimony and he didn't see those things. I think Yvonne, given that she had witnessed his verbal abuse and even physical abuse at work, she really believed that Michael had murdered Bonnie. And as heartbreaking as it is, she did also believe that Erin witnessed the murder of his own mother. Aaron did actually end up getting adopted at the age of 4 years old, so his name went from Aaron Haim to Aaron Fraser, and Michael Haim's parental rights actually were terminated. The judge feared that because Aaron is supposedly the only witness to his mother's murder, he was afraid that Aaron could be at risk of abuse from his father. In 1999, Bonnie Haim was declared legally dead, and Aaron and his new adoptive parents actually sued Michael, saying that he was the one responsible for her death. In 2005, a civil court actually ordered Michael to pay Aaron $26.3 million and also get the family home he grew up in till age 3. But the twists and turns are not over yet, guys, because listen to this. In 2014, when Aaron had plans to sell the home that he had received in the settlement, he wanted to remove the pool and outdoor shower. During the excavation process and the renovations, buried in the dirt underneath the outside shower, Aaron actually found a bag containing what he at first thought was a coconut. But with observing it a little more, he realized that it was actually the top of a skull. He saw some teeth and even the top of eye sockets. Of course, he immediately suspected who these remains belonged to, and with further DNA testing, he was right. The skull belonged to that of his biological mother, Bonnie Haim. Along with the remains, they found a .22 caliber shell, which Michael did own a .22 caliber gun at the time. And interesting enough, when Michael was leasing out his house to rent, he very specifically included that there was to be no renovations or excavations on his property at the time of renting. Upon Aaron finding the remains of his birth mother, Michael Haim was arrested and charged with the murder of Bonnie Haim. He was taken back to Jacksonville, Florida, where he pled not guilty to the charges laid against him. It was actually on April 8th, 2019 when Michael's trial started, so everything I'm about to tell you is quite recent. Aaron, as well as some other family members, actually testified against Michael, as well as 2 inmates who actually shared a cell with Michael, saying that Michael had told them that he did kill Bonnie and that he remembers his son Aaron being very mad at him and that he buried her in the yard. One of the inmates actually said that even though he was a big guy at 300 pounds, he feared Michael. He said that he was terrified when he shared the same cell as him. But of course, at the trial, defense attorneys did argue their statements and said that due to their history of crime and not telling the truth, can they really be trusted? During Aaron's testimony, he actually did say that he had no recollection of his birth mother and he did not remember being interviewed by the caseworker. However, the social worker Brenda Metters, who interviewed Aaron in 1993, says that she can remember very clearly how Aaron was saying how Daddy hurt Mommy, Daddy couldn't wake her up, Mommy was sad, Mommy was hurt in the stomach, and she says that it didn't seem like he was making it up. Apparently, he even said that Daddy shot Mommy. And given the fact that a .22 caliber shell was found with her remains, that doesn't really seem too far-fetched. Michael Haim actually testified in his own defense at the trial, saying that he loved Bonnie and would never do anything to hurt her. But after only 90 minutes of deliberations by the jury, on April 8th of this year, 2019, Michael Haim was convicted of second-degree murder. But even when this verdict was read out, Michael Haim's face had zero emotion. I watched the video, nothing, while Aaron and Bonnie Haim's family were relieved, but also, of course, wiping away tears. And while sadly but understandably Aaron's memories may have faded of his mother, he did say, "It was tough. I think everyone can imagine, even if it's not a loved one, finding a skull and picking it up and what that would do to someone, not to mention if it was your mother." So, I mean, this guy's been through a lot. I remember in the trial, he actually had said that he had been seeing a psychologist for a long time. So my heart goes out to him and Bonnie Haim's family. The sentencing for Michael Haim will be on May 17th of this year, 2019. This was a very, very sad case, of course, because a young woman's life was taken from her, but also the fact that Aaron, at 3 years old, witnessed the murder of his own mother. And even though he doesn't remember it, that's still got to leave some type of emotional, psychological scar on a person. So very sad case, but I'm glad that after over 20 years, the truth came out about what happened to Bonnie and that justice will be served. Thank you guys. Okay. So thank you guys so much for watching this video and listening to this case. Make sure you like and subscribe to join the Cutie Club. like and subscribe to join the cutie club. Oh, that could be cute. Thank you guys so much. I will see you in my next video.